and welcome back. It's another week. Thank you so much for tuning in to another makeup video with me. What I decided to do is a fun way to level up your smoky eye. I said in my first video that there's obviously different versions of smoky eyes that you can do. I kind of walk you through a few different ones in this video and how you can move from day to night, how you can do one that's all matte or something a little bit more playful. The first makeup memory that I have is the Britney Spears Crazy music video. Came out back in 1999, so you know, makeup in the late 90s, early 2000s is good. But I just remember she had this really cool, like, sultry smoky eye with like a metallic silvery green like topper on it. Some of the first things that I started to do as far as makeup was concerned was kind of a blue smoky eye, thinking I was hiding makeup from my parents. I was smart, it's fine. I thought I would take what initially inspired me to do makeup for a living and kind of show you a few different ways that you can play with smoky eyes and something that can be super wearable or something really fun and really spunky. If you want to see more videos like this, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. And if you want to see how I put together this look, then just keep watching. Now I look like an off-brand, like, bridesmaid. All right, so first things first, I'm gonna go in and prime my eyes. Obviously, I don't have my base on. I have my skincare, eye cream, sunscreen, all that jazz on. I'm gonna go ahead and prime my eyes first with that same Anastasia primer you've seen me use in the past. So I just put it on my little steel palette because I furged up my hand, ran into the hall tree, you know, like a grown-up. I am the clumsiest person you will ever meet. Just a dab on each eyeball. All right, and then same thing as usual, I'm just gonna set that with just like a neutral tone. This is the shade Mixed Media from this Tarte's Pro Remix palette. Now, when we talk about leveling up your smoky eye, there's obviously a million and one different ways that you can do smoky eyes. I feel like the kind of staples that I go to are the daytime smoky eye look and then switching it to evening. And I feel like there are two ways that you can do both. In my Dodgers video, I demoed doing like darker at the lash line and then kind of one shade all over. And then obviously there's one where it's a little darker on the outer corner to give a little bit more of like that fox eye or wing effect. I'm gonna kind of do a mixture of all of them today. I'm gonna show you how you can do the daytime smoky eye and step that up to nighttime both ways. The only thing I won't show you is the daytime smoky eye all over, because I feel like I did that in the Dodgers video because that wasn't super dark or super heavy. And honestly, that's usually my go-to look. There's like a couple of shades that I'll do that I just kind of apply all over for my usual like 5-10 minute get ready. So enough of me jabbering, let's get into it. The biggest thing is definitely starting out small and working up in layers. I'm gonna keep today pretty neutral tone. So I'm gonna go back into that same Kat Von D palette that you've seen me use a million times, the shade in light, and I'm gonna use that neutral gray to start as like my transition color. The best way to get your placement is to kind of look straight into a mirror and then tilt your head back, and then where you see your eyeball, that's where you can get your crease, as well as you can also get your placement for how far you want that shadow to go up. But I'm starting out really light, obviously, because I don't want to go in super heavy if I'm doing a daytime look, and I want it to be kind of light and soft. And I'm gonna go in with this shade Wall Art. It's just like a mid-tone neutral brown. I'm gonna go in with a flat shadow brush. I like it because it's domed and a little bit fluffy on the end, so I can get a little bit more like precision, but also it kind of does a lot of the blending for me. And then you've seen me do this a million times. I'm just gonna kind of place it along my lower lash line here and then up into this V, or up into my crease. So it's that like outer V. And then I kind of fill that section in. honestly, if you wanted to, you could stop there for your daytime smoky eye. You can pop like a shimmer on the lid if you want. You can keep it matte. You can go back in with that same like initial color and just kind of clean up the corner here so it gives a little bit more of that brightness if you don't want to wear shimmer. I am going to deepen it just a little bit because even for daytime looks, I kind of like to have a little bit more of that definition, unless I'm going with a Morphe brush. It's a little bit fluffier. And in that same wall art color, just kind of lightly dust it on. Go in with just like a black eyeshadow on a tiny little definer brush and place that directly along the lash line. You can also use brown, and then I'm going to go in with the same like clean blending brush, and I'm just going to soften that edge. And so it's going to give a little bit of that deeper like tone along the lash line, but it's not going to be anything too crazy. The biggest issue that people have when it comes to using black eyeshadow is the fact that they go in like too heavy all at once, and it really is just like a build. I'm going to go in with that same black tone and do just a little bit close to my lower lash line. And then I'm going to go in with that same like shadow brush and dip into that brown again. And I'm going to just kind of buff out that edge. Fucking flying here, and I'm going to go crazy. That is where I would stop for my daytime look if I was just doing it as a matte eyeshadow look. I'm going to tightline my upper lash line, do my mascara, and then I'll show you how you can take it to the next level, because ideally the thought is you do this for whatever daytime look you're doing, and then you want to bump it up for nighttime if it's a date night, when those used to be a thing. What I'm going to do first is essentially just step up this look. So if you like it to be darker on the outer corner, same thing, still build up in small steps. I go in with that same first brush that I used. This is actually from the Anastasia Riviera palette. I'm going to go in with the shade Palm. It's like a deeper brown tone on that side. And once again, just the tip of my crease brush, I'm just going to start to slowly stamp that on this outer edge to start to build that up. But now that I know that I have my guideline of how high I want it to go, I'm not going to go past it. So I'm going to just kind of stamp and then slowly start to wiggle back and forth, and then I'm going to pull back on my brush a little bit to slowly start to kind of soften that out. And then I'm going to go back in with that clean blending brush and just kind of start to buff out some edges. Like a little smudge brush, and go back into that Palm shade and apply it on my lower lash line. Same thing, just kind of on that outer edge though. And kind of connect it. I'm going to go in with the flat side of that Anastasia brush and back into the shade Ink from this Tarteist palette. And I'm going to apply it on the lower lash line, just kind of stamping and up into that crease, but I'm not going to bring it too high. I'm going to kind of keep it on that lower lash line, and you can see I'm bringing it about halfway up. Go back in with that same blending brush as before and just slowly wiggle back and forth. I dig it. And then you can take a little bit more of that black on that flat brush and same thing, kind of apply it to that lash line. So that is another way you could take it from day to night, is basically just taking 2 more shadows and applying it on top. Just remember to work in slow sections. Do a little bit more mascara and then you're good to go. What I'm about to do is probably my favorite type of smoky eye in general. One, because it doesn't have to be super precise. I do love like really artsy, well-crafted smoky eyes, but I also just like, I wouldn't say like grunge, but I like a little bit of just like, it's not perfect, it's just nice and smoldery. Like that's really kind of the vibe that I fucks with. I'm gonna go in first actually with a black eyeliner, and I'm gonna use that as my base for the smoky eye. And I'm basically gonna take this and run it all along my lash line. And I'm not gonna be super precise with it. So yeah, I'm just gonna take this brush and buff out that line that I just did to kind of get the shape that I want. And it's also going to give, as you can see with my eyes open, it's going to give the most dimension directly towards my lash line. I know I keep hiding myself from you, I'm sorry. That's why you don't have to be super precise when you're laying down that liner, is because you're going to buff it out anyways, and then you're going to lay shadows on top of it. So now I'm actually going to go on top of that with shadow, and I'm going to take just my Anastasia same like little flat brush, and I'm going to go back into that ink shade, and I'm just basically going to stamp it along that liner that I laid down. Now that I've got that deeper portion, essentially what I'm going to do is get it married with my upper transition color. So I'm going to fill in that little gap there. And I like to do that with a dark gray, so that way it's a little bit easier to blend into the black. And so I'm going to go into that same Kat Von D palette and go into that deeper gray tone on my crease brush. And then I'm just going to, same thing, just start to stamp that color kind of in between the black and that upper brown tone. I'm going to go back in with that fluffy brush without any additional product on it, and I'm just going to slowly kind of go back and forth to soften some edges. I'm actually going to line my inner waterline with that same liner. I'm going to go in with that same little tiny brush, a little bit more black. I'm going to bring it all the way in this time. So yeah, this would be a good stopping point if you want to keep it all matte. I feel like you know me and I like a little bit of shimmer. What I'm going to do is go in with the shade Seaside from that Anastasia palette, and this is just an Urban Decay brush. The flat side of it to pick up the product, tap some off, and then just kind of press it along my lash line. This kind of has like a gunmetal color to it, and I like it a lot. I like it a lot. And see, doing the black and the brown and the liner first gives way more depth and dimension to the shimmer than just being like a flat gray on the eye. So I got the eyeballs done. I'm gonna go on and move to my base. So first things first, I'm gonna go on and prime this mug. I go in with some of the Smashbox Photo Finish Primer, just because I feel like my pores are on one lately. Massage the primer, but don't pull your face down flat. And then I'm gonna go in with this Smashbox Studio Skin Full Coverage 24-Hour Foundation. This stuff is thick. It's a very full coverage foundation. I use the tiniest amount. It's this like little guy right there. And if I'm wanting to, a lot of times something that's good with this one is actually mixing it with an oil. But I'm just gonna start buffing. I apply in the center of my face because that's where all of the goodness likes to sit. And then I slowly start to buff it into the rest of my skin. I actually like the original Studio Skin foundation. Like, that's probably my holy grail foundation. I call it my Disney foundation because I can wear it to Disneyland and not worry about it. Something is different with this formula though. It's probably the coverage. So I feel like as far as coverage is concerned, I'm kind of where I want to be. I'm going to start by correcting first. So I'm going to go in with an LA Girl Pro Concealer. It's their Peach Corrector. I'm just taking that Peach Corrector on a flat concealer brush, and I keep blocking myself. Just applying it where I have that darker pigmentation. To go in with my NARS Radiant Creamy Concealer in the shade Vanilla. She's running low, and I'm gonna apply it right in that inner corner. And then I'm gonna let it kind of hang out there for a moment while I do my brows. Probably gonna not show me doing my brows. Now I'm gonna go in and kind of buff out the concealer. Essentially just tap it out with a little bit of that wet product. And I focus majority of my blending on my inner corner and up the side of my nose and down my redness. And then whatever's left on the brush, I slowly start to bring it outward, and it'll start to clean up like the edge. But once again, by tapping and buffing, I'm not moving any of that like color corrector that I did. And then once I've got kind of the blending that I want, I go back in with my original foundation brush, and not really like any extra product. I just kind of press that in to make sure it's nice and blended with the rest of my foundation. I usually go in with like a little bit of a lighter powder brush and just a translucent powder. I don't like using a big a big brush, because then it's not as focused. And then, like I said, I just like to kind of press and roll it into the skin. Because I'm so dry under eye, I don't like to do a ton. And then I'll take any excess and just kind of put it in the areas where my face where I start to get dewy. And then now that I've got my under eyes powdered, I'm going to go in with a fluffy brush again and just kind of buff out that bottom edge again, just so it's not too neat and tidy under there. I'm not going to contour my face just because I'm not in the mood, but I'm going to go in with the bronzer shade and just on a fluffy brush. I just prefer the bronzed look. And of course, with your bronzer, you apply it where you would naturally think the sun would hit you. So tops of cheekbones, tops of forehead. I bring it down to my jawline just so everything is cohesive. But the fluffier the brush, the better I find for bronzer, just because it looks more natural and it's not like super structured. For blush, I'm going in with the Makeup Forever. I honestly don't know what color it is because they sell them individually, but I'm going in with like this peachy pink color. And same thing, just like that is the Bare Minerals blush brush. I press a lot and then start to do that circular motions back and forth. I do a liquid lip today. This is from Kat Von D or KVD Vegan Beauty, and this is the shade Mother. I like it because it's kind of like a purpley pink, but I don't really line my lips with this one because it's a liquid lip. So start in the center. So I feel like this is the finished look. I don't mind it. I love a good deep smoky eye. I just think there's something like super sultry and fun about it. And you can obviously take these tips and apply them to any different eyeshadow look that you do. I appreciate you watching another video all the way through. It means a lot to me. Comment below if there was something that you learned this week that you may not have known before. Thank you again. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week, and I will see you next week. Have a good one. Bye.